Hey lovelies, welcome back to Reviews and Recaps. Let's get into Ready to Love, Season 8, Episode 6. If you're new to this channel, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share. And if you're a returning subscriber, I love you. Thank you so much. Now let's get into today's video. So the episode started at the ladies' lounge. Tommy said asking about how the process has been so far and are the men putting in work. So the ladies were like, well, they feel like the men need to apply more pressure. I'm like, I can definitely see that because I don't see any, well, except one or two connections. I didn't really see a lot of connections this season. Like, it's how many episodes in now and we still don't have concrete connections. That is so odd. Anyways, let's continue going. So nephew Tommy basically tells everyone that the power to send someone home is in the hands of the ladies. So they need to go on dates this week and express their doubts to the men. I'm like, okay, girl, cool. Now, can I say the ladies seem to be bringing the fashions to the ladies' lounge, but the men seem to be dressing like crazy people? Did you guys see Lee in that yellow dress? That body is banging. The booty is set. Everything is nice. I'm like, Lee, madame, girl, that body is bodying. Anyways, let's move on. So Phil and Aries went on a date. Phil brought her some roses. I was like, okay, that's sweet. They came in out there looking like twins. I'm like, okay, all right. Sounds like there might be something in there. So they start talking and, Aries is like, so what have you been thinking about? He's like, you. I'm like, okay. The way Phil was looking at Aries on this date, honey, it was looking at her like she was food. I was loving it, honestly. I'm like, it was just refreshing to actually see one connection. Like I said, there hasn't been a lot of connections this season. So any connection that I can get, honey. So Aries basically starts expressing her doubts, but she's like, I don't want to say doubts. Doubts is such a strong word. But she needs a partner who would accept her kids and also be a partner with her. So it sounds like she wants to make sure that she has a father figure for her kids. And of course, Phil was cool with that. He's like, if they end up together, he's going to end up with 3 children in total. And I was absolutely here for it. So after their date, Phil walked her to the car and she gave him a kiss on the lips. I was like, wow. They definitely look so adorable together. I felt that there was something there. It was definitely a respectful kiss. It wasn't no tongue, which was nice, at least for us viewers, not to have to be seeing their tongues all up in there. I'm not here for that. Anyways, Christopher and Sarah went on a date. So Sarah starts saying to him that initially she was a bit scared. She thought he might have been a catfish and he laughed about that. So they start talking about what you like. And Chris kept going on about he pays attention to detail and he's all about what his partner likes. And so he asked her, I think she then basically said she likes Birkin bags and that's what she likes and Chanel bags are her thing. I guess she was trying to make a joke. The joke didn't land because Christopher was like, what if I hit a rough patch and I can't afford the Birkin? I'm like, okay, He definitely sounded like he took it seriously. Now, of course, I personally would not make such a tasteless joke to begin with. But yeah, Christopher definitely was not feeling that joke. And yeah, I feel like their connection ended before it could even start. I was like, well, nothing to see here. They clearly don't have a connection. I'm like, well, hopefully we can all finally stop forcing them on these dates because it clearly seemed like they forced them together. They really did not want to be there. Anyway, Jessica went over to where Chris works and brought him some lunch. And I was like, okay, that's kind of nice. That's very sweet. And so they both start talking about their doubts. And so Chris was like, he understands that she's a very strong woman and he likes a strong woman, but he wants to see more of that compassionate side. He's like, I'm cool with you being assertive and talking to other people, but I want you to be soft when talking to me. Jessica basically said in her confessionals that she's very direct. She ain't about to start talking soft. I'm like, okay, so they're clearly not going to work. But I actually feel that I understand where Chris is coming from. The thing about it is, I love a strong man. I love a strong man, match, whatever. I love it. Love, love, love it. However, when it comes to me, I'm not one of your boys. So I expect you to be tender with me. And that's something that I always communicate when I date certain men who are like very alpha or whatever you want to call them. And so I'm like, I'm not one of your boys. So when you talk to me, please be tender. That's what I need. And yeah, it's never really been an issue after that. But I think sometimes the person must always be willing to receive it. And on this end, I know the date ended up okay, but I don't think that Jessica wants to sort of be softer in her approach towards Chris. And I don't think that's going to work if she continues to not be. So let's move on to Katarina. So Katarina went on a date with Marvin. Marvin is a sex guy, because I don't know what else to call him. He brought her some roses. I'm like, okay, is it interesting that this episode, it seemed like all of the men brought gifts for whoever it is that they were going on a date with. I wonder if production put them up to it, but that's probably something we'll find out later on as the season progresses. So she's like, she has a few questions for him, and he's like, oh yes, go on. So she's like, is he able to function in a monogamous relationship? And so he's like, yes, he can. But you know what was interesting? Did you guys peep his body language? He was looking down, looking about, looking uncomfortable. That usually happens when someone is not being completely forthcoming, right? They're lying about something, or they're hiding some sort of factor in there. Yes, he thinks he could potentially be able to be monogamous, but his body's like, no, no, no. That's what it was given to be. He knows freaking well that he ain't about to be monogamous. Let's be honest, right? Well, in my opinion, I better say that. So she basically didn't believe it, right? But he was like, yeah, he grew up with his family, and he's experienced, being that in that monogamous space and whatnot. I'm like, So then she's like, she worries that he may get bored with her. And he's like, nah, with his experiences, he feels like he's been there, done that, and he's just moving forward. You know what's interesting? It was a similar question that Lee asked him in one of the previous episodes. And he said he didn't bring up that he's been there, done that, right? If that was the truth, he would have come across and said that earlier on in the season. It just feels like he is to whoever or whatever he needs to be. So when he said to Lee, he was like, oh, he's never going to get bored of her or tired of her because of the body, basically. And he has a little bit of an ass fetish. I don't know if you guys remember that. Yeah, that was the same question. I think she was like tired instead of bored, but it was still along the same lines. And his responses were totally different. So which one is the truth? Are you completely over it? Or, because if you were completely over it, I believe you would have said that to Lee, and then also said, but girl, look at you, look at that booty. I ain't never gonna get tired of that, right? As opposed to just about the body and the booty and ass fetish, and then ass worship rather, and then him talking about the forced O. I'm like, no. It does not ring true. What I liked about Katarina was that in her confessionals, it sounded like she picked up that he ain't with it, right? She's like, he said that, he can be monogamous, but she does not really believe that. I'm like, I don't either, honey. I do not. And then he was like, oh, he feels like they both get on well together. I'm like, bro, this scene looks awkward. This scene looks like you're forcing it to be a thing when there is no connection there. Like, what the hell? I don't understand. So he's like, he thinks he might actually come out of here with a girlfriend. I'm like, boy, no, you ain't living here with a girlfriend. What are you talking about? So yeah, I was like, nah, that ain't gonna happen, boo. So Kira decided to invite Herbert over to her place. I didn't even know they had anything going on. So I was like, okay, Herbert came in with the with a gift for her dog. I was like, okay. You see what I mean about all these men with the gifts? So Kira basically cooked, and I don't know if you guys clocked about this, right? This man he hadn't even taken a bite of the food, honey. She didn't even let that man taste the food before she started talking about her doubts. I'm like, girl, let him eat. Like, let him taste the food first. So she starts talking about the fact that, she's used to being pursued and that's what she likes and that's what she requires. And that she feels like with Herbert, he's nonchalant. I'm like, he ain't feeling you. A man will be nonchalant when they are not feeling you. Even if he's the most laid back person, he will put in effort. You will know he is feeling you. If he ain't doing that, he ain't feeling you. That's just the reality. Like, why is everyone acting like this is hard to understand? So he starts talking about how dating multiple people is hard. And she's like, yeah, she understands that. But then in her confessional, she was like, yeah, but then it only takes 3 seconds here, sitting on the toilet seat to send a message. And I agree with her. Like, sending text messages is the easiest thing you could do. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I have days when I'm working until like 2 a.m. in the morning. But that don't stop me from still sending a text message here and there, right? Like, I might not respond for hours because I'm like swamped, but generally, like, it doesn't stop you from keeping in touch, So all I hear is excuses, honey. So shortly after they discuss their doubts, Kira starts talking about wanting Herbert to do a TikTok dance, and I'm like, oh God. So they started dancing. Herbert at least looks like he tried to be a good sport, but it just looked so awkward. Like, Herbert is so tall and she's so tiny. I did not see the connection. It just seemed like homeboys, like, hanging out. I was not feeling it at all, but I was like, do you know what? Kira looks like she was having a blast. I'm like, I don't really see that you're doing that with a grown-ass man that you're interested in. I'm like, honey, that is not cute whatsoever. I actually feel like Kira is probably going to be the next woman to leave the show because, like, I don't know, man. I can't see any connections that she has with anybody. I feel like she's forcing it at this point. But anyways, let's move on to Quentin. Quentin had a date with Janelle. And so Quentin was there all up on Janelle. And, he was looking at her like he wanted to eat her up. And so they started talking about Janelle's doubts. So Janelle was like, she's trying to understand what the timeline is. She's ready to have children. She's 41 and Quentin is in his 30s, right? So they start talking about whether or not Janelle is open to adoption. And she's like, yeah, she was adopted. And I'm thinking, what? First of all, what are you guys talking about? Because if Quentin, how is it that you don't know that this lady was adopted when in the first episode we found out she was adopted? So what are you guys talking about? All these conversations you guys be having, what is it about? I get the impression they have such a flirty sexual banter between them and they do not talk about a lot of things that has substance. This is just what I think. This is my personal opinion. I have no way to verify this, but that's just what I think, honey, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't get it. So he's like, yes, he wants to have children as well. So they sort of talked about it. It sounded like Quentin was open to, dating and marrying someone ASAP, basically. So then Quentin had the audacity to be like, yes, we're going to have sex. I'm like, girl. Do you know what? I think Quentin just wants to tap that ass. This is my opinion. There's no way of proving it, like I said. But I think he just wants to tap that ass. I think he is probably locked in with Lee and just wants to tap that ass. That is what I think. Or he's stringing Janelle along just so he has another connection. Because I don't actually understand. That being said, they did look cute together. They were super flirty. I actually liked them together. But I just feel like, I don't know, I just get the impression that Lee and Quentin are very much like all intertwined and have chosen each other privately. But then just deceiving the rest of the cast and trying to still keep their options open so they can stay on the show. which I guess, it's a show, so it is what it is. So Kira then went on a date with Murray. I'm just like, why do you guys keep torturing us with dates with Murray? They clearly do not gel. They don't mesh well together. Why do you lot keep on taking us on these dates? Like, why do you guys keep showing us these dates? Anyway, Kira starts talking about, whether or not she has any doubts with Mario. And Murray started talking about, like, his day-to-day life. Then Kira starts talking about she felt like he prejudged her with the comment about, like, Black culture and that she has brothers. I'm like, Kira, you keep making it worse. Why are you saying you have Black brothers? That's like saying I have white friends. Like, why don't you get it? That it just doesn't make sense. If anything, it makes you look even stupid. Like, more stupid than you already look. Like, I know people that have watched the interview with Crystal XO basically said that she came across a lot better. But even at that, like, I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, you have to give them something for them to be editing, because you're giving them a lot of sound bites. Like, you really need to fix that. Anyway, she told Maria that she felt like it was a slap in her face. I'm like, Kira, let it go. You guys are not right for each other. You guys need to stop taking us on these dates with you all. I don't want to hear it anymore. So Maverick went on a date with Lee. And so Lee starts talking and asking him about his temperament. He's saying, he's pretty much cool, calm, and collected. He starts talking about the fact that, he likes, like, impersonating voices in movies and stuff like that. And so Lee was like, oh, so what is your favorite movie? And he's like, Jurassic Park. Girl, if you see the way Lee was looking, she was, like, confused. Like, wait, is this man doing animal voices and impersonating them? So there was this awkward silence between them. When I tell you, I cracked up. So this man tried to clean it up and said, no, just the people in the movie. I'm like, girl, I don't remember so many other people. There's a lot of animal involved, honey. Like, of all the movies in the world, Jurassic Park is your favorite. Like, Marvin, get a life. So then he starts talking about, the fact that he likes Lee and she's an amazing person. She's gorgeous yet humble. And so then he starts asking, like, where is she with him? And so Lee tried to break it to him, honey, I think you're a nice guy, but your lifestyle does not align with me. And so, he starts going off about the fact that, he's not just like, what I want is what I want, and he compromises. And I agree with Lee, right? Lee said something that I really liked. And to be honest, right, whilst I feel like we don't see enough of Lee's personality on the show, I feel like I actually like that she seems to be pretty switched on about being able to spot people and pick out things that other people may not. So Lee was like, it's a pretty extreme lifestyle, right? And I just feel like you suddenly being ready to compromise, like, that just doesn't seem genuine. And that's the truth. It's like, it's a pretty extreme. Like, there is no compromise between you whipping me and doing all these crazy ish, and you, like, either way, that would have to mean you completely saying no to what you enjoy or what you like, right? Because I ain't gonna say yes to being whooped by you. So there's no point here. So she told him, like, she doesn't want him to feel like he's pushing down his true desire. I'm like, I can just tell Lee does not like that man. Lee is probably like, please, why you all keep putting me and setting me up on these dates with this man, honey? Do not want to see him. So we're back to the ladies' lounge now, and Tommy starts asking them who are they connecting with. So Aries starts blushing whilst talking about Phil. She was basically like just glowing, and she just seems so happy. So I hope it actually works out for them. And Janelle started talking about Quentin and Herbert were her top picks. Kira talked about Herbert and how she feels like it would be fun dating him. I'm like, girl. Well, because he wanted to do TikTok dances with you. He didn't want to. He just tried to be a good sport. Anyway, she brought up the fact that he wasn't consistent with his communication and that she talked to him about it. Jessica talked about Chris. So Tommy's like, okay, so who is not ready to love you? And so Sierra talked about Christopher. Aries felt like Christopher was just selling himself. Janelle said she felt like he was just lobbying. I'm like, oh my God. Then Jessica started imitating that voice. Oh my God, Chris's voice. She was so good. I was like, okay, Jessica, who knows? You might be able to act like a voice actor or something. Like, look into that, sis. Lee said Marvin. Then Jessica is like, Marvin is a stag. I'm like, what is a stag? Thank God she clarified it for us. She's like, oh, it's someone who enjoys watching his partner have sex with other people. I'm like, you a freak, honey. This show ain't for you. So Aries said Murray. She's not feeling him. Jessica said Murray. Kira said Murray. Then, girl. So then, neck deep in between, honey. When I say that things got heated between Janelle and Kira, Janelle wasn't feeling Kira's comments about Murray in relation to Black culture, and she decided to bring up the fact that Kira has been incorrect before about Quentin, and the fact that Kira sat here and said Quentin dates white women, and you said that you are most like a white woman here. You know, when I say Janelle was calling out all the way out, Janelle had all the smoke for her, honey. All the smoke. And I was like, do you know what? It had to be said. Like, I'm glad someone said it. Like, you might not like Janelle. You might not like her approach. I felt like she was giving her a lot of heat, which I didn't think that needed to be her approach. But the message was correct. Her delivery and her tone was off, but that message was all the way correct. And I endorse and I agree with that message. So then Jessica chimed in and then basically said, like, you make comments about levels of blackness and something is too black for you. I'm like, girl, you said that? Like, what is too black, honey? Like, why would you say that? Like, you know, when you meet people and you're like, yo, you need to go on some like sensitivity training and like race training and education because like, I don't understand, sis. Like, you said that? So Kira is like, you know, I can feel your negative energy. And Janelle was like, I don't have to speak to you. I would not be speaking to you. I'm like, oh God, because you jump in and out of character. I'm like, okay, guys, like, let's take it down a few notches, right? Like, I understand where you're coming from, Janelle, but I feel like you got too heated for something that was not even directly in relation or impacting you in any way. I don't think that was necessary. I think, and I approve the message, but I feel like you should have handled it a little bit differently. That's all I gotta say on that one. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. So Tommy basically tells them that 2 guys will be going home today. When I tell you I was so happy, I was like, yeah, nah, this season has been a mess. I'm so happy that 2 people will be leaving. Like, I don't really like a lot of the guys on the show, so I'm like, please get out, like, now. So now time for the elimination date. So Kira and Christopher went on a date. Maria went on a date with Lee, and Katarina went on a date with Marvin. Kira then decided to give Christopher some like constructive advice, basically saying, you know, I want to make sure that who you are is coming through, and me and the ladies feel like when you talk to us, you're trying to sell yourself. And he was like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? So she's like, well, the way it comes across is almost like he's lobbying, right? And also, she also brought up the fact that he got the number of someone and did not reach out to them. So the ladies feel that he isn't ready to love. So he got eliminated. And then in his confessionals, he was like, you know, well, you want a Birkin bag, but you're catching an Uber. I was like, oh God, that is funny. Leave that girl to catch her Uber. Like, anyways, Maria went on a date with Lee. And so they start talking and she starts saying to him that, you know, we're already halfway through the journey. And for most of the ladies, you're giving homey vibes. She also said, like, you know, there was an issue when you challenge someone on Black culture, but the ladies still feel like you're ready to love. I'm like, okay, it's good they kept him. So over on the other side, Katarina went on a date with Marvin. And then she starts telling him that, you know, some of the ladies just couldn't align with him based on his sexual preferences. And they feel like you're saying whatever you need to say to each lady on the show. And so the ladies decided that he was not ready to love. And I'm like, hallelujah. The thing about it is, I feel like this is the first season where they haven't kept people just for ratings. Like, I feel like the previous seasons, right, they would not eliminate certain people who should obviously be going home because they have no connections, only to keep them on the show to drive on the ratings and bring the drama. I feel like this is the first season where the right people are actually getting eliminated. And I love that. I really love that. I'm like, go home. I don't want to see y'all. So I'm loving that about the show. So if you've come to this point now, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you let me know in the comment section what you thought of this episode. And yeah, but please make sure you share as well. And one thing I can't wait for is the next episode. It's going to be juicy. The ladies will be meeting the men's exes. Like, that is going to be fun. I cannot wait. I'm going to be here with y'all. Like, yeah, it's going to go down, honey. I cannot wait. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, so you can see my take and be able to listen to my take on that. Anyways, thank you so much for coming to the end of this video. I appreciate every single one of you for sticking with me until the end of this episode. Please give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys later. Bye.